I'm here with the new Honda SCL500. This is a parallel twin scrambler style motorcycle. This is actually the first press bike that I've had here on the channel, and I'm excited to give you guys a first impressions. I haven't ridden it more than maybe a mile from my house to the local park here, and so I'm going to give you guys just a quick first impressions of this parallel twin. Under 500cc, about 471 if I remember right. It's got about 43 horsepower. Not as much torque as that loud beast, but it's got around 30 pound-feet of torque. It makes a lot of that power and torque pretty low in the rev range, and so it makes this thing kind of a fun city cruiser. But notice the tires. We have kind of these all-terrain tires, so this kind of has a dual sport sort of vibe to it. I know that's kind of a scrambler in premise, right? It can do on-road mostly, but it can do a little off-road if you ask of it. Now, this is based off the Honda Rebel 500, has the same engine, similar frame to my understanding as well, and I like how the frame is exposed here. And I like the green tank here, it gives it kind of that retro vibe. One of my favorite design pieces on this, well, the factory seat's pretty decent. I love this exhaust. Look how cool that is. The dual exhaust that comes around the side of the bike. My imagination starts running wild of aftermarket exhausts on this. And we'll see how good it sounds here in a little bit when we fire it up. And the key goes right in over here, kind of like an old school charm sort of thing. Most bikes that I'm used to have a key somewhere in here. All right, but the tank has these built-in side protectors. They're standard from the factory. It's pretty nice. And we got kind of these circular Mickey Mouse ears, which are perfectly fine. They don't work on the Grom that well. I have a Grom at home, a lot of you guys know, and I took those mirrors off. They just don't fit the persona of the bike. But since we have a circular style headlight here with 4 individual LEDs, and even the blinkers or the turn indicators are circular as well, the mirrors kind of fit. All right, so the ignition is on. Let's throw a leg over. Clutch in. What do you guys think? Pretty quiet at idle. Let's flip the kickstand back. There we go. Now, my initial impressions here, now I just got a Yamaha MT-09, and this feels very narrow with the handlebars, almost like the stock Grom was. And I got rid of my stock Grom bars and put on a wider bar set there. So this feels very narrow, very small. This tank is tiny, kind of gives me an old school cruiser vibe to it. And you can see, maybe you can see, the camera might not pick it up, but it's got some character. This twin has the mirrors vibrating here at idle. Much more vibey than maybe the Grom even though the Grom just has 1 cylinder, it's absolutely tiny. The single cylinder is like, I don't know, 1/3 of the size of these cylinders, something like that. All right. So with that being said, I think we're going to do a couple like around the parking lot maneuvers here to get used to this bike. The second you start getting off the clutch here, it starts engaging, or the lever here. So I kind of like that, and we're off. Now, it just purrs along here and just doing some circle turns. This is actually a lot easier, I would say, to maneuver than my MT-09 at low speed maneuvers. The center of gravity here is very low, and I'm not doing any throttle, just kind of purring along. Center of gravity here is very low as I do these turns. And yeah, even though it weighs about the same as my MT-09, the center of gravity here is so low that this is really, really easy to do parking lot maneuvers on. So with that being said, let's get out of here. Let's try the braking real quick. Braking's pretty good. ABS standard, I believe. Just a single brake disc here and caliper on the front, and then obviously a single on the back. But brakes are pretty good. ABS standard. This bike comes in around $6,800 before destination, dealer fees, all that added stuff you guys know. Now, this seat height, now the bike doesn't look that short, but definitely it's lower to the ground than my MT-09 from the seat. I have long legs at 6'1". I wear 34 inseam, and the seat here I think is a little over 31 inches off the ground. So shorter riders should be able to ride this no problem. You know, I got a lot of vibes coming through my butt right now. I'm not used to that, and it changes of course based off the RPM you're riding at. But yeah, that was it's pretty smooth, good power. I was not wide open throttle there. Let's just go wide open throttle here in 6th. Nah, it's still pulling. You probably wouldn't need to downshift. I don't even have a tachometer here. That's pretty old school. That's going to throw some people off. Now I noticed the on-off throttle here is actually a little bit more twitchy. That's a funny looking bird. It's a little bit more twitchy than my MT-09. I don't know if it's because it's a parallel twin or it's just the electronic throttle by wire system here. I'm not quite sure. I don't even know if this is throttle by wire. You guys might be able to correct me on that. It might be a traditional cable for all I know. Easy to read your mile per hour. Fuel gauge here at the bottom, and then your odometer here. And I think there are buttons here on the side that you can, yeah, there's trip A. Let's just go ahead and reset that. If it's gonna let me. Is this a reset button? And it's just awkward to do while you're riding, so I don't recommend doing that. There it goes. It reset while I was riding. But yeah, it's just kind of like a reach. It's awkward. I wish those buttons, both of the buttons were on the same side here, so I could do both instead of reach over here, if that makes sense, because my right hand's going to be on the throttle. But maybe Honda's like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that while you're riding, but whatever. All right, let's get into some downshifts here. There's 5th, 4th, 3rd. Okay, not used to it entirely. I missed I think I missed my 5th to 4th because I'm not used to where the foot lever is. Okay, and just find it, there it is, it found itself. I'd say the gearbox overall is pretty smooth, but like I said, this is my first ride with it. There's hardly any learning curve here. It's a very simple bike. I don't have any extra controls on here. I mean, this is pretty much how my Grom is set up, to be honest. No cruise control, no drive modes, nothing crazy there. It's just a real basic bike. You get on it and go. Now I don't know if there's any adjustment to these forks up front. It doesn't look like it, but again, I can look that up for you guys afterwards. Fuel economy, I would assume the fuel economy on here is going to be pretty stellar. It says miles per gallon and trip B is 63. Just holding 45 miles per gallon in 6th gear is going to get you about 85 miles per gallon on a flat plane. So yeah, fuel economy is going to be pretty fantastic here on this SCL500, and it's probably going to be essentially identical in fuel economy compared to other Honda bikes that have this powertrain. So that's the Rebel 500 comes to mind. I think the CB500X, if they still make that, comes to mind. And we might just do a yeah, there's no one in front of us, so let's go ahead and downshift a couple gears, let it rip. Yeah, at about 60 miles an hour you start feeling quite a bit of wind coming off. You could probably easily outfit this with an aftermarket windscreen or some sort of cowl setup here. Now that I'm going here, what is the feel here? Well, my feet are actually in front of me a little bit, or I wouldn't say in front of me, but very neutral. So my knees are definitely out in front of my ankles, but not so much like the MT-09. Maybe a little bit more like the Grom, all right? But I prefer to have my feet tucked back a little bit more for longer rides. But this isn't bad. I mean, if you're not the most flexible person, this shouldn't be an issue for you. It definitely feels a lot more natural than having my feet out here. I remember I sat on a Rebel, and my feet were out here in front, and I'm like, what the heck? It just doesn't feel natural to me, because when I come to a stop, I want my foot to come from behind and down instead of in front of me then down. It's just a personal preference thing, but yeah, I have no issues with how my feet are. It's very I would say forgiving for tall people, even short people, with how you're sitting here. And yeah, my hands I do feel pretty far out in front of me, I'll say that much. But I can always slide a little bit closer. I'm not full crotch to tank right now, and I could slide definitely a little bit further back, all right, depending on how long your arms are. But yeah, it's pretty good. Let's do some downshifts, and let's get this green light. Little yellow light action. Definitely don't enjoy leaning this over as much at speed compared to the MT-09. It just doesn't feel as stable and as glued to the ground. Maybe it's the tires, or I don't know. I know these tires definitely aren't as thick in the back compared to my MT-09, but I just got that bike, so I'm still learning that bike too. But it just doesn't feel as confidence inspiring when you're leaned over in the turns compared to the MT. And I don't have a lot of bikes to compare this to. Obviously, it's my first press bike, but around like low speed maneuvers, it's very forgiving, very easy. Shouldn't be intimidating, especially with the low seat height. But at higher speed maneuvers, you know, taking turns, it doesn't feel like it wants to party as much. I'll say that with my limited experience. Okay, good to go. That was better though. There we go, wide open throttle. Yeah, it's got beans, man. It's got some pull to it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for a city bike, if you're just taking this for city, this is perfect power. I would say around 40 to 50 horsepower is all the power you need for around town. On the highway, personally, I would want a little bit more power. So say I'm going like 65, I can get around people, but it's not as instant as I would like it to be. You still feel like the power has to build a little bit for you to probably pass at like 70 miles an hour or higher, but it's definitely going to be okay for most people out there. And I'm a heavier rider. I don't know, I'm not that heavy. I'd probably say I'm about 195 right now, 195 pounds. But yeah, I don't know if I would want to be much heavier for this style of bike for sure. But shifting gears, it's smooth shifting gears. I would say it's a lot smoother than my MT-09 shifting gears manually. My MT-09 has that quick shifter that I can be lazy with, but man, this Honda gearbox is really smooth, really enjoyable. And really forgiving. So if you're a new rider, guys, I don't have a lot of experience myself. So like for me, I feel super comfortable on this bike. It's not intimidating whatsoever. If you, I mean, could you start on this bike? Absolutely. But I want a couple downshifts, pop, you know, that's full throttle. It's not just leaving everyone in the dust. I'd say this bike is really good, probably up to about 50-60 miles an hour with its power, and then after that it really starts showing its limitations in its design and just overall its displacement. But yeah, at 55 miles an hour here, I'm getting a ton of wind blast on my chest, and it's not a bike I would want to go touring on unless you put a nice windscreen on here. But yeah, the ride quality on here is pretty good. I feel it's a little bit softer of a ride compared to my MT, and some people might really like that. This is kind of like in between a cruiser and a dual sport. It's such a unique bike from Honda, and I'm glad it's here because I almost thought about getting a Rebel of various displacements, 300, 500, 1100. They all kind of look the same until you see them in person, and you can tell the engine displacement is much higher on the 1100 for sure. But you almost have to look twice to see the differences. But this bike doesn't have any lower or higher displacement models that I'm aware of. But I did think about getting the Honda Rebel. I just couldn't get past the styling. And I wanted an engine with a little bit more character. So this engine here, This Parallel Twin, it is a bit, it's smooth. I would say it's smooth, but I already feel like I've pretty much figured it out at this point within 20 minutes of me riding it around. Good power and good torque at lower RPMs, which is perfect for city riding. I wonder what Honda could do with that 1100 twin in something like this. Yeah, buddy. We're gonna catch this diesel. I know he's still pulling away from me. He's still pulling. Jesus, dude, I was doing 70. What a monster. See, there you go. I couldn't keep up with that dually diesel there. Wide open throttle. That thing's a monster. That's literally a monster truck. But I'm gonna end it there, guys. I'm gonna do a few more videos on this. I don't know how long I'm gonna have this bike. I might have it for the whole summer. And it's an awesome bike for a summer bike. Just driving around town. Under 60 miles an hour is where it's really, really peppy. It likes to be. And it's a cool looking bike. Man, I feel like this bike would really liven up with a nice pipe on it. It looks so cool with that pipe in the back, but it's just leaving me wanting a lot more sound. And I wish this also had, there's a dually. I'm getting rolling coal, baby. Yeah, I wish this had the cross-plane 270 crank on it instead of the one. I'm pretty sure this is a 180 crank, and so it just doesn't sound like a Ducati like the MT-07 can from Yamaha. And so that'll have to be another video when I compare this bike. Like, why would you pick this bike over the competition? You know, that sort of video. But this video is just kind of a raw first impressions, Mr. Buick, and it's a good bike. Literally, like, there's no, I feel like there's no learning curve with this bike. Just instant upshift and downshift with no learning curve coming from a Grom. Like, could I say this feels like a bigger Grom? Yeah, I feel literally like the handlebars, the levers. Yeah, it just feels like a bigger Grom, especially this Parallel Twin. The Honda gearbox here feels like it has a similar, it's cut from the same cloth, you can say. My Yamaha MT-09 feels like a very, very different bike. It feels like an alien compared to my Grom. This feels just like the Grom. If the Grom's a middle schooler, this is like, I don't know. Grom's not even a middle. If Grom was a third grader, this is like junior year of college sort of bike. I don't know. I'm not making any sense. So I got to shut it down there. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned, and make sure you subscribe for more Honda SCL500 bike coverage. Like I said, I'll have it probably for the entire summer, and then Honda hopefully will give me another bike. I would love to test out tons of other Hondas in the lineup, like the new CB650R with the E-clutch would be pretty sick. Alright, but I'll catch you guys in the next one. Signing out from the Honda SCL500. Peace.